So let me introduce you to Bill Tibbetts. Bill is a longtime educator, professor, dean of a college of business and technology, and he's also a dear, dear friend of 20 years.
I like this idea of an ember. If you allow an ember just to kind of sit, it will eventually just die out. You could have been anywhere in the world and the Lord brought you here. So he's gonna give you an ember today. And I'm gonna ask that when today is done, you fan the flame a little bit.
Recently, Bill has joined us as our Vice President of Education and Multiplication right here at the Stone Table. And we could not be more excited about what he is going to bring to our ability to engage you as marketplace believers.
We gotta talk to God about our coworkers before we talk to our coworkers about God. I have got to talk to God about my coworkers before I go to my coworkers and start talking about God.
At a recent Christian business breakfast, Bill shared some incredible leadership insights, including how we can engage people in the marketplace for the cause of Christ.
Marketplace skills are missionary skills.
We have to remove the we versus they thinking. We have to remove the us versus them type of thinking, because it's not proper theology. I'll tell you that right now. But we talk like this all the time. In other words, we need to stop demonizing those who think, act, or look differently than us. That's hard. That's hard for us. That's hard for us to hear sometimes. Again, we know this scripture, but it's an important scripture because it testifies to bigger themes throughout the New Testament. Ephesians 6:12 says, "For our struggle is not against," what? "Flesh and blood, but against the rulers and authorities, against the powers of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil." Why is this scripture so important? We've all read this scripture, right? We've all heard it. So you ready? Here's the twist. Here's the bigger theme. Jesus specifically pointed out that the war is with spiritual forces, not with his creation. Let that sit. The war is with spiritual forces, not with his creation. And that includes other people who are not following Christ. Those are his creation. Now, we're not agreeing, we're not supporting the sin, but we've got to remove this idea of us versus them, okay? Jesus says, no, it's against spiritual forces, not his creation. Bill, come on. I don't see people as the enemy. I don't talk like that. I would never treat people like that. Of course, everyone was designed and created by the Lord, even if they think differently. That is not what I see when I look at social media posts regarding politics, social causes, LGBTQ, or sword-swallowing entertainers at men's conferences. That's not what I see. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll talk later. I think it's very easy to say we versus them. It's very easy. Why? Because it makes life simpler. Black and white, good and bad. Scooby-Doo, good guys, bad guy. Hardy Boys, good guys, bad guys, right? We're all raised in that mentality of bifurcating everything into black and white when most of it is actually gray. There's a lot of nuance, a lot of challenges. I had coffee with a new acquaintance this Monday, and it's fascinating. I've shared with Eric before. I love going to coffee shops. Minneapolis, there's a coffee shop on every corner. But the Lord has been doing something in the last couple of years where I will sit down at a coffee shop and I clearly am reading a book, I'm working on my laptop, and the Lord always brings me an old man. You know, and that old man will sit down. As soon as they walk in, I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to walk in, they're going to see all this lusciousness, and they're going to sit down right next to me, and they're going to start talking. And because I love Jesus, I'm going to close my laptop and be like, okay, this is ordained by God. All right, so I turn around and I start talking. Well, I met a guy, Dave, this Monday at a Starbucks. And Dave was very confident where he was and was very open and shared quite a bit. Dave and his wife and their 3 sons all were incredibly addicted to drugs and alcohol for the majority of their life. The oldest son, after a significant binger one night, was driving. And on that drive, he inadvertently and accidentally hit someone. He hit a young man, and killed him. He died. That really started the wake-up call for Dave and his family. You know what it takes. I mean, there was proceedings and so forth, and so many things happened. But they had the funeral for that young man who passed away a few weeks later. Dave and his family, starting to sober up to life, heard about this, and they went to the funeral. And they stood in the very, very back of the entrance. And somehow, the wife of the man who had been killed, and they had 2 children, young children, were sitting in the very front row, and they saw them. And during the service, she stands up in the midst of the preacher talking, goes to the back, grabs Dave by the hand, and pulls him up, and has Dave and his whole family sit with her and their 2 kids for the funeral. If Jesus can forgive and love his enemies, so can us, so can we. If that widow can forgive and love that family who destroyed her life, so can we. We have got to stop demonizing everybody who's not like us.